So this little thing is the Screaming Eagle tuner for my Street Bob. Now I received this thing as part of the deal when I bought my new to me Street Bob, and I used the Screaming Eagle tuner to update the Bob so that it would work best with my new S&S Stealth air cleaner. Is this thing easy to use? Can you see what's happening with the tune? How well does your Harley run during and after the tuning process? I'm going to get into all of that, and I put some chapter markers in the video, so if you'd like to jump around, feel free. And this is the guinea pig, my Harley Davidson Street Bob with a 114 cubic inch M8 motor. And when I bought this bike, it had a canned tune already loaded for the stage 1 setup, which is pipes and an intake. But anytime you buy a Harley, you get this insatiable urge to change something out. Am I right about that? So after swapping the factory air cleaner for the S&S one, I knew I would need to go back and update that tune to accommodate the additional flow that the S&S claimed to have. And S&S claims the Stealth air cleaner flows 38% more air, but that doesn't really mean the bike is actually doing that. However, I was still very concerned about a potential lean condition, so it was time to, flash the ECU. And that brings me to the Screaming Eagle tuner, this little guy. A combination of an app for your phone, and there's a laptop version too if you're into that, and this thing, the BCI or Bluetooth Communication Interface. Now, according to Screaming Eagle, and I'm going to quote straight from the web page, the Screaming Eagle Pro Street Tuner is designed to simplify management of engine operating parameters as performance modifications are made. And look, that's really all you need to know. This is supposed to be easy, and it kind of wasn't. But it did sound fit for purpose, so I proceeded to start the install by locating the diagnostic port and connecting the BCI. Now, there is some double-sided tape included, but I just zip-tied the thing to the bike because I couldn't find a good place to mount it. Next, I loaded the application on my phone, and I did notice that the application was not rated very well. Then I allowed the app to take advantage of my Bluetooth connectivity and signed away my life with a long page of legalese that was way too small for me to read. The BCI, it did require a firmware update, and that wasn't all that difficult, but it did fail the first time. The second time it went much better, but then I discovered that the BCI needed its pairing reset because it was still paired with the previous owner's phone. But clearing the pairing on the BCI was really easy. All that was required was to power cycle the bike and then cycle the throttle 5 or 6 times, and it was ready to go. So then it was time to set the ECU up for self-tuning, and I thought that would be easy, but I waded through several instructions and whatnot, and the process failed. And this was pretty tricky to figure out. The app was complaining of a low battery, but when I checked the battery using the gauges portion of the Screaming Eagle app, it was above the required 11.9 volts. And if you Google this, you're going to find a lot of complaints about this behavior, and there's not any real solution. But what worked for me was clearing the error codes on the ECU. Now, each time I've done that, there were no actual codes to clear, but doing it anyway and clearing those non-existent codes out, the tuner will successfully load the parameters into the motorcycle's engine management. And with all that out of the way, it was time to ride, so I could gather the data that would be used to craft the custom tune. But do you notice anything wrong? I'm not gathering any data. Now, after pulling over and figuring that out, I could now see that data collection was happening. Great. The app presents a grid of empty cells, and as the app collects data, it'll flip the cell to light green and then colors the cell darker green as it collects more data. I wanted to color as many of those cells dark green as possible, which meant that I rode around for an hour like a total douchebag. But y'all, it was all for science. What can I say? And by the way, when the application tells you that your motorcycle is going to run kind of poor while collecting data, it's not joking. My motorcycle felt awful with a huge torque deficit, and it just felt like something was wrong with it, like something was clogged. But it was still pretty exciting because I was hopeful that when this was finished, the bike was going to run great. And after that hour of riding like a complete jerk, I realized that the data collection process was as good as it was going to get. I pulled over and I completed the tuning process by saving the logs, failing the flash, clearing the non-existent codes again, and then telling the app to process the file. And it worked. And after that tune, the Street Bob pulled like a freight train. But to be honest, it's hard to know if it's actually better than it was before, because for the last hour, the bike was running like dookie. So since I couldn't tell by the seat of my pants, I thought I would assess what the Screaming Eagle tuner had accomplished by looking at the data. And y'all, I have no idea what it actually did, because every time I tried to look at the tune, the application would crash. Now, tuning aside, I did find the gauges function of the application useful. You can create a gauge dashboard and populate it with 5 of your favorite data points, such as detonation events, battery voltage, engine temp, etc. And that's pretty useful. And that concludes my real-world experience with this tuner. And I don't really suggest you look into it, unless you're under warranty. But since my motorcycle is out of warranty anyway, I'm going to move on to something else. I can't tolerate the software bugs, the false low voltage warnings, the application crashes, the lack of visibility to the changes. All of that adds up to a really negative experience. And heck, I worried constantly that with all those failed uploads that this thing right here might actually brick the ECU of my Harley and leave me stranded. And that is not comforting. Now, if you have any feedback on this you'd like to share, I'd love to hear about it. And until next time, dodge the cagers and ride safe.